The sun hung low in the San Diego sky, casting a warm glow over the marina. I stood on the deck of our modest home, staring at the invitation in my hand. It was from Tom, my husband's boss, inviting us for a yacht trip. A chance to unwind, he had said in his usual charismatic way. But I sensed something deeper behind those words. My marriage felt like a fragile glass, ready to shatter at any moment. Tom had been working tirelessly, often late into the night, and our conversations had dwindled to mere exchanges about bills and chores. I missed the laughter we once shared, the spark that made us feel alive. The thought of spending a day on the water with his boss felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. "Are you going to call him?" my friend Lisa asked when I mentioned the invitation over coffee. She stirred her latte absent-mindedly, her brow furrowed with concern. "I think I should," I replied, unsure of my own motives. "Maybe it could help us reconnect. Or it could complicate things further," she warned, but I brushed off her concerns. This was just a day out on the water, after all. I dialed Tom's number later that evening while standing in our kitchen, surrounded by remnants of dinner. "Hey. It's Anna," I said when he picked up. "Hey. How's it going?" His voice sounded distracted. "I got your invite for the yacht trip." I hesitated before adding, "I'd love to join." "Great. It'll be fun." He sounded genuinely pleased but didn't press for details about my decision. As the day approached, anticipation mingled with anxiety. What would it be like? Would Tom be there? Would we talk about our issues or simply enjoy the sun and sea? The morning of the trip dawned clear and bright, with seagulls calling overhead as I made my way to the marina. The yacht loomed large against the vibrant blue sky, a sleek vessel named Sea Breeze. Tom greeted me at the dock with an easy smile that momentarily reminded me of happier times. "Glad you could make it," he said as he helped me aboard. Once on deck, I felt a flutter of excitement mixed with trepidation. The boat rocked gently with each wave that lapped against its hull. As we set sail into San Diego Bay, I took a deep breath of salty air and tried to let go of my worries. Tom was charming as always, his laughter ringing out over the sound of water splashing against fiberglass, yet there was an undercurrent of tension between us that was hard to ignore. He started sharing stories about work and his recent successes while I nodded along politely, trying to focus on his words instead of what lay beneath them. Halfway through our journey, as we drifted near La Jolla shores where cliffs met azure waters, Tom opened up unexpectedly about his own struggles, his marriage strained under pressure just like mine. "You know," he said softly, leaning against the railing with a distant look in his eyes, "sometimes it feels like we're just roommates rather than partners." His vulnerability caught me off guard, it drew me in closer than I intended. We shared stories back and forth, each revelation breaking down barriers built by years of silence and unspoken fears. In those moments of honesty, something shifted between us, an undeniable connection sparked amidst our shared pain. But just as quickly as that connection formed, doubt crept back in like an unwelcome tide. What were we doing? Was this truly innocent? My heart raced as I caught myself leaning closer than necessary while listening intently to him speak. Suddenly, an alarming sputter broke through our conversation. The engine began to fail dramatically beneath us. Panic surged through me as Tom scrambled below deck to assess what was happening while I gripped onto the railing for support. "Anna," he called out from below after what felt like an eternity. "We're going to need some help." The reality hit hard. Here we were, adrift in open water with no immediate way back to shore and uncertainty looming over us like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. In that moment of chaos and fear, something shifted again within me, a realization that this trip might not be about salvaging my marriage after all but rather confronting truths long buried beneath layers of complacency and denial. As we worked together amid rising tensions, attempting futilely to fix what was broken, I couldn't shake off how close we had become during those moments before disaster struck. The thrill mixed with fear tangled within me like seaweed ensnaring a swimmer beneath waves. It left little room for clarity or reason. Then came another twist. Amidst our frantic efforts at repair and communication came an unexpected silence from below deck where Tom had been working diligently away from sight for too long now. It sent shivers down my spine as dread settled heavily upon my chest. "Tom?" My voice trembled slightly as uncertainty gripped me tightly once more. There was no response from below deck, only eerie quiet filled by distant waves crashing against hulls around us. A haunting reminder that we were truly alone out here amid vastness stretching endlessly beyond sight. Just when despair threatened to consume me entirely, the sound of approaching engines broke through stillness, a distant hum growing louder until finally emerging into view. Another boat appeared on horizon line, its silhouette cutting sharply across sunset-lit waters signaling hope yet also foreboding consequences waiting ahead. What would happen next? Would this rescue bring clarity or further complicate everything? My heart raced anew as thoughts spiraled wildly through mind. I braced myself for whatever awaited beyond those waves. The boat drifted closer, the engine's roar now a tangible presence against the backdrop of the vast ocean. My heart raced with a mix of anticipation and dread. Would this vessel bring salvation or simply amplify the chaos already swirling around us? I exchanged a glance with my husband's boss, Mark. His expression mirrored my own turmoil, anxiety intermingled with hope. "Do you think they'll see us?" I asked, my voice barely above the sound of waves crashing against the hull. Mark squinted toward the approaching boat, his brow furrowing. "They should. We need to signal them." I grabbed a life jacket from beneath my seat and waved it in the air, desperate to catch their attention. The sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the water. Every second felt like an eternity as we watched the other boat draw nearer. "What if they don't stop?" I murmured, anxiety creeping into my voice. "They will," Mark assured me, though there was a tremor in his tone that didn't inspire confidence. As we waited, an uncomfortable silence settled between us. The weight of our situation pressed heavily on my chest. This trip was meant to be an escape from our problems, a chance to reconnect with my husband's boss away from prying eyes and judgment. Instead, it had spiraled into something unrecognizable. The other boat finally slowed down as it approached us, and I caught sight of two figures on board, a man and a woman, both looking curiously at our stranded yacht. Relief surged through me momentarily until I remembered why we were out here in the first place. "Wave again," Mark urged as he joined me at the side of the boat. I waved more vigorously now, my heart pounding in rhythm with each movement. Just then, a loud sputter erupted from our engine, jolting both of us back into reality. Mark cursed under his breath as he rushed to inspect it again. "Not now," he muttered angrily to himself as he opened up the engine compartment once more. I felt helpless standing there watching him struggle against mechanical failure while trying to keep up appearances for this rescue party that might not even care about us once they realized who we were. "Can you fix it?" I asked cautiously. "I'm trying," he replied tersely without looking up. The other boat began to circle us slowly, and I could see their expressions shift from curiosity to concern as they realized we were truly in trouble. A man leaned over the side and shouted out to us. "Are you guys okay? We're stranded." "Engine trouble," Mark yelled back while still fiddling with wires and bolts that seemed beyond repair at this point. "Hang tight. We're coming." The man nodded before turning back to his companion on board their vessel. As they moved closer for a proper rescue attempt, I couldn't shake off the feeling that this moment was pivotal, not just for our physical safety but for everything else that had transpired between Mark and me during this trip. The tension hung thick in the air like an impending storm. It was palpable and suffocating all at once. In an impulsive moment driven by desperation or perhaps something else entirely, I stepped closer to Mark as he worked on the engine. "We need to talk about what's happening between us," I said quietly enough for only him to hear over the sound of waves lapping against fiberglass. His head snapped up at my words, surprise flickered across his face before quickly morphing into something deeper, something akin to longing mixed with fear. "Now?" he asked incredulously, glancing nervously at our rescuers who were still navigating towards us. "Yes," I insisted softly but firmly. "We can't ignore it any longer." Just then, another loud clank echoed from below deck, followed by silence, a jarring reminder of how precarious our situation truly was, and without thinking further about consequences or implications, I leaned in closer until our lips met briefly in a rush of urgency fueled by shared vulnerability amidst uncertainty surrounding us both. It was quick yet electric, a spark igniting amidst chaos, but also fraught with implications neither of us wanted to fully face yet. Before either of us could process what had just happened or how much deeper we'd fallen into this mess together, the other boat arrived alongside ours, their crew readying ropes and fenders while shouting instructions back and forth between vessels filled with urgency tinged with relief at finally reaching us after what felt like hours adrift in uncertainty. Mark straightened abruptly as if jolted awake from some trance-like state, and suddenly all semblance of intimacy vanished beneath layers upon layers of reality crashing down around us once again. The weight of guilt pressing heavily against me like an anchor dragging me down into depths where secrets festered unseen beneath surface calmness masking turmoil brewing just below. "Grab onto this," one rescuer shouted as they tossed a rope toward Mark, who caught it deftly before tying it off securely onto our yacht's cleat while signaling for me to step closer so we could board their vessel together, an escape route opening before us even if fraught with complications yet unspoken. As we climbed aboard their boat, my heart raced anew, not just from physical exertion but also from realization dawning upon me. What now? What would happen when we returned home? Would everything change irrevocably? Or would this be merely another chapter leading toward inevitable confrontation waiting just beyond horizon line? With every passing moment aboard that rescue vessel, a sense of foreboding loomed ever larger behind shimmering surface where secrets remained hidden beneath waves lapping gently against hulls. The engine sputtered again, a harsh reminder of our precarious situation. The horizon stretched endlessly, the sun dipping low, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. I glanced at Mark, my husband's boss, who was peering into the engine compartment with a furrowed brow. The weight of our shared secret hung heavily between us, a tension that seemed to thrum in the air. "Do you think we can fix this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark straightened up and wiped his hands on his shorts. "We have to try," he replied, the determination in his voice contrasting sharply with the uncertainty that gnawed at me. As we worked together, I couldn't shake off the feeling that this was more than just a mechanical failure. Each moment spent alongside Mark drew us closer together, blurring lines I had once thought were clear. We were trapped, not just by circumstance but by our own choices. "Do you ever think about what went wrong?" Mark suddenly asked, breaking the silence that had settled over us like a thick fog. "What do you mean?" I replied, surprised by his vulnerability. "My marriage," he admitted, leaning against the yacht's railing as if it could support his burdens. "It feels like we're just going through the motions." I nodded slowly, understanding more than he knew. "It's hard," I said softly. "Sometimes it feels like we're just lost." In that moment of honesty, something shifted between us. Our lips met briefly, a fleeting connection born out of shared pain and isolation. It was a mistake and yet felt inevitable, an acknowledgement of what we both craved but dared not fully embrace. The sun dipped below the horizon as darkness enveloped us. The stars began to twinkle above like distant memories, each one representing dreams long forgotten or abandoned in the wake of reality. "Let's see if we can get this engine running again," Mark suggested after a moment of silence passed between us like an unspoken agreement to keep pushing forward despite everything. We set to work again with renewed vigor but found little success as night fell around us. The sounds of the ocean became louder in the quiet darkness, waves lapping against the hull felt almost mocking in their rhythm. Hours passed as we struggled with tools that felt foreign in my hands. My mind wandered back to my husband, his laughter, his warmth, and I felt a pang of guilt twist within me. What would he think if he knew where I was? What would he say if he understood how close I had gotten to Mark? "Are you okay?" Mark asked suddenly, interrupting my thoughts. "I'm fine," I replied too quickly, feeling defensive even though there was no accusation behind his words. He studied me for a moment before nodding slowly as if deciding whether to press further or let it go for now. As midnight approached and exhaustion set in, we took a break from our efforts to repair the yacht and sat side by side on deck under a canopy of stars. The ocean sparkled beneath us like scattered diamonds, a stark contrast to our troubled hearts adrift amidst uncertainty. "Do you think we'll be rescued soon?" I asked quietly, staring out into the vast darkness that surrounded us. "I hope so," Mark answered softly but didn't meet my gaze. "But maybe this time alone isn't such a bad thing." His words hung heavily between us, an invitation wrapped in ambiguity that sent shivers down my spine. "I shouldn't be here," I said finally, trying to ground myself amidst rising emotions threatening to spill over. "You're not alone in this," he replied gently, placing his hand on mine, a simple gesture filled with unspoken promises and desires that made my heart race despite myself. The night wore on as we shared stories about our lives, our dreams and disappointments mingling with laughter tinged by melancholy, a fragile connection forming amidst chaos surrounding us both physically and emotionally. But as dawn approached and light began creeping over the horizon once more, a reminder that reality awaited beyond these waters, I couldn't help but wonder how long we could continue pretending everything was fine while drifting farther away from everything familiar back home. Just then came another sputter from below deck, the sound sending alarm bells ringing through me, but before either of us could react further, a sudden jolt rocked the boat violently beneath us. I clutched onto Mark instinctively as panic surged within me, adrenaline coursing through my veins as fear gripped tightly around my heart like an iron vice. "What was that?" I gasped breathlessly while scanning our surroundings frantically, but all seemed eerily still except for crashing waves against hulls echoing ominously around us now. Mark scrambled back towards engine compartment while shouting over noise around us, "I don't know. But something's wrong." My heart raced faster than ever before, dread pooling deep inside me as realization hit hard. We were truly adrift, lost not only at sea but also tangled within webs spun from choices made against better judgment. Moments later came another deafening roar followed by silence, leaving only echoes lingering within air thick with tension hanging heavily overhead now. Mark emerged from below deck looking pale yet determined, urgency etched across every line on his face. "We need to signal for help." I nodded dumbly, my mind racing through possibilities ahead, each worse than last, but before either of us could act further, an unexpected sound broke through chaos surrounding us. A familiar voice carried across water toward our drifting vessel cutting through darkness surrounding. "Anna. Are you out there?" My heart dropped, the voice belonged unmistakably to my husband. He had come searching for me after all. "Anna. Are you out there?" The voice echoed across the water, pulling me from my thoughts. It was unmistakably my husband, his tone laced with urgency and concern. Panic surged through me as I stood at the edge of the yacht, staring into the darkness beyond. "Here!" I called out, my voice trembling despite my efforts to sound steady. The waves lapped against the hull, a constant reminder of our isolation. I turned to look at my boss, who stood nearby, his expression a mix of worry and apprehension. "Do you think he knows?" he asked quietly, glancing toward the dark horizon where my husband's voice had come from. "I don't know," I replied, feeling the weight of uncertainty settle in my chest. "But we can't let him see us like this." The engine's sputtering had already put us in a precarious situation. Now, with my husband searching for me, searching for us, I felt trapped between two worlds, loyalty to my husband and an unexpected connection with the man beside me. As we waited for another call from him, I could feel the tension thickening in the air. The storm clouds loomed overhead, mirroring the turmoil inside me. "We need to signal him somehow," I suggested. My boss nodded but hesitated. "What if he gets too close? He might see us." His eyes flicked to mine with a hint of something unspoken. We both understood that this wasn't just about getting back to shore, it was about facing what had unfolded between us. "I can't let him see you," I insisted, knowing how much was at stake. My heart raced, not only from fear but also from an undeniable bond that had formed during our time adrift together. The wind picked up as dark clouds rolled in over San Diego Bay. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the water around us for just a moment before plunging us back into darkness. "We should get below deck," my boss urged, concern etched on his face. Reluctantly, I followed him inside the cabin. The small space felt suffocating as we huddled together against the encroaching storm. A part of me wanted to distance myself from him, remind myself of who I truly belonged to, but another part craved his presence as a source of comfort amidst chaos. Suddenly, another voice broke through the tension. "Anna. Please." My husband's voice was closer now. I pressed a hand against my mouth to stifle a gasp. "He's coming." Panic surged anew as I glanced around for something, anything, that could help conceal our situation. "We can't hide forever," my boss said softly but firmly. "We need to face this together." As if on cue, thunder rumbled overhead and rain began to pour down outside like a curtain falling over our reality. It was then that everything shifted. We moved closer together instinctively as if seeking warmth against both the cold and our fears. "Anna." My husband called again, desperation creeping into his tone. I closed my eyes briefly and took a deep breath before stepping toward the door leading back onto deck. "I have to talk to him." "No." My boss grabbed my arm gently but firmly. "You can't go out there alone." "I have to try," I insisted, shaking off his grip and stepping onto the slick surface of the deck just as lightning illuminated everything around us again, revealing not just our surroundings but also how precarious our situation truly was. "Anna." My husband shouted again as he finally emerged from behind some rocks near where we'd drifted aimlessly in recent hours. I felt torn. Every instinct told me to run into his arms while another part warned me of what lay beneath that surface, the secrets shared with someone else entirely different from him. "Please. Come here," he pleaded desperately as he approached cautiously across shifting waves crashing against both boats now anchored side by fate or chance, or perhaps destiny itself. "We're okay." I shouted back over crashing waves. Uncertainty gnawed at me like an insatiable beast lurking just beyond sight, waiting patiently for its moment when all would unravel completely without warning. But instead of relief flooding through me at seeing him safe and sound on deck, now too close yet still distant enough not knowing everything, I felt only dread creeping into every corner of consciousness where hope once resided freely before betrayal took root deep inside. The storm intensified around us, a physical manifestation of all that remained unspoken between us, three souls caught adrift together, and yet there was no escape anymore because life had chosen this path for each one involved, whether willingly or not. Lightning struck again, illuminating everything, briefly revealing truths hidden away beneath layers built over years spent trying, desperately holding on to something long past due. And then came silence, the kind that wrapped itself tightly around hearts longing for clarity amid confusion swirling wildly outside while inside emotions churned violently within. Suddenly it hit me, we spent the night together. My heart raced anew at that revelation because it felt both liberating yet terrifying, knowing what had transpired during those hours lost within stormy seas, drifting further away from safety every passing moment. as if sensing my turmoil witut needing words spoken aloud anymore. The tension between us grew palpable once more, even though rain continued pouring down, soaking everything around, including memories forged under duress, now threatening collapse under weight, carried forward relentlessly onward, unyielding regardless, consequences looming ahead, inevitably drawing closer. "I can't do this," I whispered, finally breaking silence again, feeling utterly exposed, standing there drenched by storms raging outside. My husband still searching frantically, trying, reaching out, grasping hold onto something solid amidst chaos surrounding, all three caught up, entangled within web spun, intricately woven throughout, lives intertwined yet so far apart now. "What do you mean?" my boss asked quietly, stepping closer, shielding me partially against elements threatening overwhelm, completely drowning any hope left behind before realization struck hard, leaving nothing untouched anymore. "I mean," but before finishing sentence, thunder roared louder than ever before, drowning out words meant spoken aloud. Only echoing silence remained afterward, hanging heavy like thick fog, settled firmly upon hearts aching, desperately seeking resolution, found nowhere near sighted shores ahead, beckoning them ever forward through turbulent waters, crashing relentlessly upon fragile vessels barely holding steady afloat against tides pulling downward, dragging deeper below surface, unseen depths lurking just beneath awareness, awaiting reckoning, inevitable soon enough. The storm had passed, leaving behind a haunting stillness that settled over the yacht like a heavy shroud. I stood at the edge of the deck, staring into the vast expanse of water that seemed to stretch endlessly, mirroring the tumult within me. The waves, once ferocious, now lapped gently against the hull, as if mocking my turmoil. "Do you think they'll come for us?" my boss asked, breaking the silence. His voice was low, tinged with uncertainty. I turned to face him. "They have to," I replied, though doubt gnawed at me. My husband was out there somewhere, likely worried sick. Yet here I was, stranded with the man who had become both a temptation and a source of confusion. "Maybe we should signal for help," he suggested tentatively. I nodded but felt an urge to delay. Confronting my husband felt insurmountable right now. "Let's wait a bit longer," I said. "Just give it some time." As we stood there in silence, I could feel the weight of our choices pressing down on us like an anchor, dragging us deeper into uncharted waters. The intimacy we had shared during the storm lingered in the air between us, a reminder of how fragile our connections could be. Suddenly, I spotted a familiar silhouette on the horizon. My heart raced as recognition dawned. It was my husband's boat cutting through the waves toward us. Panic surged through me like electric current. This was it, the moment of truth. "Anna," he shouted as he drew closer, his voice carrying across the water with urgency. My boss looked at me with wide eyes, understanding dawning on his face. "You need to tell him," he urged softly. "No," I whispered fiercely. "Not yet." But before I could gather my thoughts or muster any semblance of a plan, my husband had arrived alongside our yacht. He climbed aboard with an ease that belied his concern but betrayed an underlying tension in his stance. "What happened?" he demanded sharply, scanning our faces for answers. I opened my mouth to speak but found no words came out, only silence hung heavily between us like an unspoken accusation. "I asked you what happened," he repeated more forcefully this time. "It's complicated," I finally managed to say, feeling small and vulnerable under his piercing gaze. "Complicated how?" His frustration bubbled just beneath the surface as he stepped closer to me and then shifted his focus to my boss. "What were you two doing out here?" My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled for clarity in this chaotic moment. The truth felt like shards of glass stuck in my throat, sharp and painful but necessary for release. "We were trying to fix things," I said carefully, glancing at my boss for support but finding only apprehension mirrored back at me. "Fix what?" My husband's eyes narrowed suspiciously as if searching for hidden meanings behind every word spoken aloud. Before I could respond again or elaborate further on what that meant, how we had been trying to mend not just the yacht but also our lives, a sudden realization struck me. he already knew something wasn't right between us. "You've been distant," he said slowly, almost contemplatively before turning back toward my boss with renewed intensity. "And you're supposed to be her friend." "She is your wife," my boss replied defensively but kept his distance from me as if trying to maintain some semblance of neutrality in this charged atmosphere. "I trusted you both." My husband's voice trembled slightly, hurt mingled with anger painted across his features starkly illuminated by fading sunlight above us. "I'm sorry," I whispered before stepping forward instinctively toward him despite every instinct urging caution against vulnerability at this moment when everything felt so precarious already. He looked down at me then back up towards where waves danced playfully around our vessel, a cruel contrast against our reality, and shook his head slowly as if wrestling internally with emotions too complex for words alone could convey adequately enough without causing more damage than necessary already inflicted upon all three of us standing here together now facing inevitable truths, revealed long overdue. "I'm not hiding anything from you," I stated firmly though uncertainty lingered heavily still beneath surface calmness feigned too easily now slipping away fast like tide receding rapidly leaving exposed shores behind vulnerable once again laid bare open raw wounds still fresh needing healing desperately, sought yet out of reach seemingly forevermore lost somewhere hidden deep within tangled web woven intricately connecting three lives intertwined along paths divergent yet converging upon this very moment poised precariously teetering toward unknown futures ahead waiting patiently just beyond horizon beckoning forth choices awaiting resolution. Then suddenly, without warning, the tension snapped like a taut string pulled too far past its limit. "Enough!" My husband erupted unexpectedly breaking through silence thickened surrounding us all enveloping tightly constricting every breath taken barely escaping lips trembling now under pressure mounting steadily escalating dangerously high threatening eruption imminent, soon enough unless addressed directly head-on without hesitation any longer lest consequences dire awaited inevitably looming overhead casting shadows long darkening skies above already heavy-laden hearts burdened by secrets untold. With that declaration echoing loudly around us reverberating deeply within souls caught up tangled amidst chaos swirling furiously outside while emotions roiling just beneath surface calmness held together tenuously barely holding steady afloat against tides, pulling downward dragging deeper below surface unseen depths lurking just beneath awareness awaiting reckoning inevitable soon enough. My boss shifted uneasily beside me while glancing nervously toward where boats bobbed nearby. Some drifting aimlessly others moving purposefully onward toward distant shores leaving behind memories fading fast lost among waves crashing relentlessly upon fragile vessels barely holding steady afloat against tides pulling downward dragging deeper below surface. Unseen depths lurking just beneath awareness awaiting reckoning inevitable soon enough. In that moment suspended between past choices made present realities faced future uncertainties looming ahead rapidly approaching. Something snapped inside me too. "I can't do this anymore." The words burst forth unbidden from lips trembling under weight heavy carried far too long already threatening overflow spilling out uncontrollably flooding spaces once safe now feeling compromised irrevocably shattered beyond repair left picking pieces scattered. Everywhere around feet planted firmly grounded still somehow yearning desperately seeking solace found nowhere near sighted shores ahead beckoning them ever forward through turbulent waters crashing relentlessly upon fragile vessels. Barely holding steady afloat against tides pulling downward dragging deeper below surface unseen depths lurking just beneath awareness awaiting reckoning inevitable soon enough. And then everything changed again. Panic surged through me as I spotted my husband's boat cutting through the waves, a small dot against the vast blue expanse. My heart raced, caught between dread and an inexplicable urge to call out to him. The yacht felt smaller, almost claustrophobic, as I turned to face my boss, whose expression mirrored my own turmoil. "Anna," he said, his voice steady but low. "We need to decide what we're going to do. This isn't just about us anymore." I swallowed hard, the weight of his words pressing down on me. "He's coming for us," I replied, my eyes glued to the approaching vessel. "What if he sees us together? "We'll have to be honest," he insisted, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Hiding won't solve anything." The engine sputtered again, a reminder of our precarious situation. The yacht bobbed awkwardly in the water, and I felt trapped, not just by the circumstances but by my choices. My mind raced back to moments shared with my husband, laughter over dinner, quiet evenings watching the sunset together. How had we come to this? As I watched the boat draw closer, a mix of fear and guilt washed over me. My husband had always been perceptive. He could sense when something was wrong. Had he known all along? The thought gnawed at me, a relentless ache that wouldn't subside. I turned back to my boss, desperation creeping into my voice. What if he knows? What if this is all just a setup? "Anna," he said firmly, stepping closer as if trying to anchor me in this storm of emotions. "You can't keep running from this." Before I could respond, the sound of our names echoed across the water, my husband's voice carrying over the waves like a lifeline thrown into turbulent seas. "Anna. Are you there?" My breath hitched in my throat as I caught sight of him standing at the helm of his boat, scanning the horizon for any sign of us. Panic coursed through me. It was too late for pretense now. "We need to signal him," I said abruptly, urgency driving my words. The boss hesitated but nodded slowly. We moved together towards the bow of the yacht and began waving our arms frantically, hoping to catch his attention amidst the churning sea. "Over here!" I shouted as loudly as I could manage. My husband squinted against the sun's glare before finally spotting us. Relief washed over his face momentarily before confusion took its place, his brow furrowing as he tried to comprehend why we were together on this yacht. I could see him maneuvering his boat closer with determination etched on his features. As he approached, fear gripped me tightly, the kind that twisted in your gut and made it hard to breathe. "What do we say?" I whispered urgently to my boss. He shrugged slightly. There were no easy answers here. "We tell him everything." The distance closed rapidly until my husband's boat was alongside ours. He leaned over the side, concern clouding his features as he looked at me first before shifting his gaze toward his boss. "Anna." His voice was strained with worry and confusion mingled together like oil and water. "What's going on? Why are you here with him?" My heart sank further. There was no escaping now. We got stranded," I stammered out awkwardly while glancing at my boss for support. "Stranded?" My husband echoed incredulously as if trying to grasp how we ended up here together without any context or explanation. "Yes," I replied quickly, desperate for clarity amidst chaos swirling around us like angry waves crashing against rock formations on distant shores that seemed so far away from reality now. "And you didn't think to call me?" His tone shifted slightly. A mixture of hurt and betrayal laced through each word spoken aloud between us like an unspoken accusation hanging heavily in air around fragile hearts intertwined yet frayed at edges threatening unraveling completely beneath scrutiny laid bare before them both now. Exposed raw wounds festering beneath surface long hidden away from light. I thought, but what could I say? That I thought being away from him might somehow mend our broken pieces? That I believed escaping would lead me back home again? Before I could finish explaining myself or even muster up courage enough for honesty required here today, my boss stepped forward unexpectedly breaking into conversation again with confidence that felt misplaced given gravity surrounding us all right now. "Look," he interjected firmly but calmly despite tension thickening around them like fog rolling in off-ocean depths concealing what lay beneath surface unseen lurking always waiting patiently. "We need to talk about what happened." At those words, my stomach dropped lower than ever before sinking deeper into depths unknown where shadows danced just beyond reach taunting with whispers promising clarity yet remaining elusive beyond grasp. "What do you mean?" My husband's eyes narrowed suspiciously between us both now standing side by side facing him directly unyielding even though vulnerability threatened spilling forth at any moment catching breath lost somewhere a long way. I mean, he paused, deliberately choosing words, carefully weighing consequences behind each syllable spoken aloud, drifting heavy, laden with implications yet unspoken, until now finally surfacing after so long submerged beneath layers built up brick by brick, shielding truth, hidden away from sight. And then came revelation. A truth carried within silence longer than time itself, stretching thin between breaths exchanged across spaces once filled, laughter now replaced, only memories haunting every corner, shadowed by doubt lingering heavily, still suffocating hope left behind, shattered remnants scattered everywhere around, feet planted firmly grounded yet yearning, desperately seeking solace found nowhere near, sighted shores ahead beckoning them ever forward through turbulent waters, crashing relentlessly upon fragile vessels barely holding steady afloat against tides pulling downward, dragging deeper below surface, unseen depths lurking just beneath awareness, awaiting reckoning inevitable soon enough. But before anything more could unfold, the sound of a camera clicking interrupted everything. A flash illuminating faces caught mid-expression, revealing truths best left unsaid, forever buried deep inside hearts unwilling share burdens carried alone too long, already threatening overflow, spilling out uncontrollably, flooding spaces once safe now feeling compromised, irrevocably shattered beyond repair, left picking pieces scattered everywhere around, feet planted firmly grounded, still somehow yearning, desperately seeking solace found nowhere near, sighted shores ahead beckoning them ever forward through turbulent waters, crashing relentlessly upon fragile vessels barely holding steady afloat against tides pulling downward, dragging deeper below surface, unseen depths lurking just beneath awareness, awaiting reckoning inevitable soon enough. The tension in the air was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. My husband stood there, the man I had shared so many years with, his expression a mix of hurt and anger. The boat rocked gently beneath us, but the storm brewing in our hearts felt far more turbulent. I could see the flicker of disbelief in his eyes as he processed the sight before him, me, here on this yacht with his boss, caught in a moment that should never have happened. Anna, he finally managed, his voice strained. What is going on? How could you do this? I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, all I could think about was the camera that my husband's boss had pointed at us, capturing every second of this confrontation. The glint of the lens felt like an accusation itself, a reminder that everything we had built was teetering on the edge of collapse. Let's just talk about this, I urged, trying to keep my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside me. Can we not do this here? But he shook his head vehemently. No. You don't get to hide from this. His gaze shifted to my boss, who stood awkwardly off to the side, an uninvited witness to our unraveling lives. And you, he spat out bitterly. You think you can just come into my life and take what's mine? Wait, I interjected quickly. This isn't just about you two. A wave of desperation surged through me as I tried to bridge the chasm that had formed between us. This is about me too, about us. I'm not sure what us means anymore, my husband shot back, pain evident in his voice. The truth hit me then, he had sensed something was wrong long before today. He had been watching me slip away without knowing how to pull me back. My boss stepped forward slightly, as if wanting to defend himself but unsure how to do it without making things worse. I never meant for any of this to happen, he said quietly. Then why did it? My husband's words cut through the air like a blade. I thought maybe we could find common ground, I stammered out before realizing how hollow that sounded even to my own ears. A silence enveloped us then, a silence filled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings swirling like dark clouds overhead. The yacht bobbed gently on the waves as if mocking our inability to navigate through our own emotions. Did you ever think about what this would do to your family? My husband's voice broke into my thoughts like thunder rumbling in the distance. I did. My heart raced as I fought against tears threatening to spill over. I thought maybe being here would help us find each other again. And instead? He gestured around us wildly as if encompassing everything, the yacht, the ocean stretching endlessly around us, everything that now felt so wrong. I don't know. The admission escaped me before I could stop it. I thought if we took time away from everything, we could reconnect. His face twisted in disbelief and hurt mixed together, a potent cocktail of emotions that left no room for misunderstanding. You call this reconnecting? The weight of my choices pressed down on me like an anchor pulling me deeper into despair. In that moment, all I wanted was for time to rewind, to take back every misstep leading up to this confrontation. I never meant for you to find out like this, I whispered finally, turning away from him and staring out at the endless expanse of water stretching before us, an ocean filled with possibilities yet tainted by betrayal. My boss shifted uneasily beside me. He seemed aware of how precarious our situation truly was but held his ground nonetheless. Anna, he said softly after a moment's hesitation, this doesn't have to end here. But it already felt like it was ending, like everything we had built was crumbling under its own weight. Do you really believe that? My husband asked incredulously, eyes narrowing at both of us as if trying to decipher some hidden truth beneath our tangled web of lies. Before anyone could respond further, a sudden jolt rocked the yacht, a sharp sound echoed from below deck followed by an ominous sputtering noise from the engine compartment. Panic surged through me as realization dawned. We were adrift once again, not just emotionally but physically stranded in these turbulent waters where nothing felt safe anymore. What now? My husband shouted over the roar of waves crashing against hull, a harsh reminder that nature didn't care about our human struggles or mistakes. We need help. My boss shouted back urgently while fumbling for his phone, his earlier bravado replaced by urgency as he began dialing for assistance amidst rising anxiety levels surrounding us all. But inside me raged another storm entirely, the realization that even if help arrived soon enough, nothing would be resolved until we faced whatever truths lay ahead together instead of hiding behind them forevermore. As my husband turned away briefly, perhaps seeking clarity or some semblance of calm, I caught sight again of that camera glinting ominously nearby. Its presence loomed large over our fragile situation like a specter haunting memories best left buried deep within shadows cast long ago. And then came another twist. The unmistakable sound of approaching engines echoed across water, a boat drawing closer toward ours with alarming speed bringing relief tinged heavily with dread into view simultaneously. Is it them? My heart raced as hope flickered momentarily only to be snuffed out by fear once more when I realized who might be coming towards us next. Don't say anything until we know who it is. My boss warned sharply while still trying desperately to maintain control over unfolding chaos threatening everything around us now spiraling rapidly beyond reach. But deep down inside stirred something darker than fear alone, regret mingled tightly with desire clashing violently against one another, an internal battle raging fiercely amidst external turmoil threatening all three lives caught helplessly within grasping tides pulling downward ever deeper still. The tension hung thick in the air as my husband's eyes burned into mine, a mixture of hurt and anger flashing across his face. I stood frozen, caught between the man I had vowed to love and the one who had become my secret, a man who now wielded a recording device like a weapon. My heart raced as I glanced at my boss, who looked equally trapped in this web of betrayal. Anna, my husband spoke, his voice steady but laced with pain. Is this what you wanted? To betray me on a yacht? With him? The accusation stung, and I struggled to find words that could mend the chasm that had opened between us. I never wanted it to be like this, I managed to say, though it felt hollow even as it left my lips. The truth was tangled in emotions I could scarcely articulate. My heart was split in two, one half yearning for the familiarity of my marriage, the other drawn to the thrill of something new and forbidden. Then why, he pressed, his gaze unwavering. Why did you come here? Before I could respond, my boss interjected, his tone defensive yet urgent. This isn't just Anna's fault. We both. Enough. My husband's voice cut through the air like a knife. You think this is some game? You think you can just play with people's lives? The accusation hung in the air as silence enveloped us again. My mind raced with thoughts of how we had all ended up here, adrift not just on this yacht but in our lives. The waves lapped against the hull gently, contrasting sharply with the storm brewing among us. I glanced at my boss, whose expression mirrored my turmoil. He had taken risks too. He had shared parts of himself that were raw and vulnerable during our time together at sea. But now those moments felt tainted by what we had done. Let's just focus on getting back to shore, I suggested weakly, desperate for any way out of this confrontation. My husband shook his head slowly, disappointment etched across his features. You think it's that simple? You think we can just sail away from this? He turned away from me and walked toward the edge of the boat, where he could look out over the vast expanse of water stretching endlessly before us. The ocean seemed calm now, almost mocking us with its serenity while chaos churned within our hearts. I saw you two together, he said quietly, still staring out at the horizon as if searching for answers in its depths. I didn't want to believe it at first. My stomach twisted painfully at his words, an admission that cut deeper than any accusation could have done. How long had he known? Had he been watching me all along? I thought we could fix things, I murmured finally. That maybe spending time together would help bring us back. And you thought cheating would help? His voice was low but filled with incredulity. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I cried out, frustration bubbling over as tears pricked at my eyes. I didn't plan for any of this. It just happened. A heavy silence settled again before my boss stepped forward cautiously. We need to talk about what happens next. My husband turned sharply toward him, fury ignited anew in his gaze. What do you mean, what happens next? You're not part of this conversation anymore. I am if you want answers, my boss shot back defiantly. Stop. I interjected suddenly, overwhelmed by their escalating confrontation and desperate to reclaim some control over this spiraling situation. We need to decide together what happens next, not fight amongst ourselves. But even as I spoke those words, doubt crept into my mind. Was there truly any way forward from here? Trust had been shattered like glass upon impact. No amount of kind words or promises could piece it back together again. My husband turned back towards me then. Pain etched deep into every line on his face made him look older than ever before, a man forced to confront an unbearable reality head-on. Anna, he began slowly, weighing each word carefully as if they were fragile glass about to break under pressure. I'm willing to forgive you. Hope flickered within me for a fleeting moment before being snuffed out by reality's cold grip. What would forgiveness even mean after everything that had transpired? You can't be serious, my boss interrupted incredulously before turning toward me with urgency in his eyes. Don't let him manipulate you into thinking everything can go back to normal. No one is manipulating anyone. My voice rose again as frustration boiled over once more. Emotions surged within me like waves crashing against rocks during a storm, wild and uncontrollable. But then came an unexpected twist, a realization dawning upon me amidst all this chaos. What if forgiveness wasn't enough? What if there was no going back? My husband took a step closer again. Determination radiated from him now despite everything else swirling around us threatening destruction. I want honesty between us moving forward, he declared firmly yet gently. Sincerity shone through despite lingering hurt still present beneath surface-level interactions between us, three individuals caught up within tangled webs woven tightly around our hearts. Suddenly aware that something monumental lay ahead, the weighty decision looming larger than life itself, I hesitated only briefly before speaking up once more. What if we try therapy together? A flicker of hope ignited briefly within me until reality crashed down hard against those fragile dreams once more. The thought crossed my mind unbidden, would it truly matter anymore after everything we'd faced? But before anyone could respond further, before clarity could emerge from confusion, the sound of clicking echoed through air surrounding us, ominously followed by bright light illuminating faces caught unaware under harsh scrutiny. My boss held up his phone triumphantly, displaying video footage capturing every moment unraveling before our very eyes. "No!" I gasped instinctively while dread washed over me like icy water cascading down skin, unprepared for shock awaiting discovery hidden beneath surface-level interactions taking place mere moments earlier. The consequences were unfathomable. "Now everyone will know exactly what happened here today." He smirked slightly while capturing reactions unfolding around him, a twisted sense satisfaction evident within, tone echoing through space surrounding us, all trapped aboard vessel drifting aimlessly across ocean waves threatening ever deeper waters below. In that moment, a single truth crystallized sharply amid swirling uncertainty: there would be no escape from consequences awaiting each one involved, regardless choices made previously or paths taken thereafter.